Hi, welcome to this info session on three of the masters offered by Sturt University. They're a group of what we call the IT Masters courses at Sturt University, and they're unique in the industry in terms of their integration of industry certification. We'll talk a bit more about that as we go through, but the catch cry for it is university or industry, why don't you include both? And the way we do that in these courses is include preparation for a whole range of the most popular industry certifications. The three we're going to look at in this session is Master of Networking and Systems Administration, a new one, only came out this year, is the Master of Cloud Computing and the Master of Information Systems Security.
Hello, this is Neil. There is a Q&A section on the top left of the screen, so I'll be answering questions as we go through the presentation. And I've got a couple of chats too, but we'll use the Q&A to ask questions on Martin's presentation.
Thank you, Neil. I'd forgotten about that. So we'll just do some introductions. You've just heard Neil McCosh. Neil's will be available to answer questions as you come through, as he said, and he's an expert particularly in things like credit and the administration of the courses. So feel free to ask questions as we go through. But just an introduction, my name's Martin Hale. I'm the one on the left there in that picture, in the suit. That was up at graduation in Wagga, I think it was 2005. The guy in the middle is Scott Anderson. Scott was our first ever graduate from these courses in the Master of Networking and System Administration. That was the first Masters we brought in. Scott's done very well. He was doing very well when he came in, but he completed his Masters very quickly because he was a triple CCIE and a whole range of other networking routing certifications. So he got the full amount of credit and he finished his Masters very quickly. And the chap on the far right is Dr. Irfan Eltaz. Irfan is the head of school for computing and mathematics at Sturt University. And he gets to wear that lovely hat because he is a doctor. I'm an Adjunct Senior Lecturer at Sturt University. Don't do much lecturing these days, but I have a position there, so I can talk on behalf of the university. And I'm also CEO of IT Masters. I'll talk about how we fit in a bit later on. There's the agenda. We'll talk about the target audience for the three different Masters. We'll have a look at the structure and then some general information, having a look at things like the cost and study load. There's also a section showing the return on investment of doing a Master's degree, having one on your resume. Okay, let's talk about the target audience. So start with the first one. It was the first ever Masters way back in 2002. It's Master of Networking and System Administration. So typically people doing this would be either in networking and system administration, want to get a master's on their resume and also pick up some industry certifications, or people who might be in a support position who want to move into that area. All I would say is that you really need to be working in the area while you're doing it, because there's a lot of the work assumes that you're actually working in networking, or at least have worked in networking and system administration. The next one is the Master of Cloud, the big buzz area in computing. Everything's migrating into the cloud, so we thought we better keep up to date and offering people the latest and greatest. We, as always, we put together an industry advisory board, experts in cloud computing, and we pulled this Masters together over the last couple of years, and it was introduced at the beginning of this year, so brand new. And our most popular now, which shows cybersecurity is going gangbusters. If you've got, if you're experienced in that area, your world is your oyster. It's just growing and growing, and if you're not, it's certainly an area to have a look at getting into. The Master of Information Systems Security is, as I said, our most popular and the fastest growing of all the Masters that we've got. So well worth a look at. Course structure, all of the Masters are structured the same way. There's 12 subjects. Some universities call them modules. They call them all sorts of different names. But at Sturt University, they're called subjects. 12 make up the Masters. And again, what's unique about these is we've got the 6 university subjects. We'll have a look at those as we look at the structure. But we also have 6 industry certification-based subjects. And what does that mean? Well, for instance, in the Master of Information System Security, there's a subject based on the CISSP certification, which is the most in demand of all the security, and things like ethical hacking, which is another industry certification. So you'll see that throughout them. There's 5 or 6 subjects who are based around industry certification. Now, if you're sitting out there with some certifications, there's a good chance you get credit for them. We recognise all of the major certifications, and we'll even have a look if you've got a certification that we haven't come across before. We'll investigate it, and if it meets the criteria, we certainly would award you credit. We don't want people having to study stuff they already know, so they're pretty flexible is probably not the right word, but they certainly will give you a sort of Scott was a good example that I mentioned before. He got the full amount of credit that you can get, which is half for all of his industry certifications. We have 3 semesters, so we don't call them semesters because that's normally 2. So there we have 3 study sessions per year, and the recommended load for working full-time professionals who are studying part-time, which are all of the students, nearly 1,000 students we've got enrolled in these courses. They're all working during the day and then studying at night. So the recommended load for those people is 2 subjects per session. If you do the math there, it should take you 2 years to complete. But look, to be honest, the average is about 2.5. So people actually have a life outside of their study, and sometimes that encroaches. They have to cut back on their study to 1 subject, or take what we call leave, which is a whole study session off. So that is definitely acceptable. They won't put you to the ringer trying to get it approved. You just send an email into the university saying, look, things have got a bit out of hand. I need to take a break. That's fine. You've got up to 4 years to complete your Masters. And even if there is extenuating circumstances, that can be pushed out as well. So there's plenty of time to do it. I said we'd just have a look at the 3 different Masters. First one, Master in Networking and System Administration. And just a general thing there, if you're having a look around, I'm sure you have at where you might study, one of the things you want to look at is how many purpose-built subjects there are in the Masters that you want to study. And quite often you'll find it's only 2 or 3. Well, that's not the case with these. As you'll see, we've got put a lot of investments. The reason we are the largest provider, I believe, and one of the major reasons is that we put so much investment into developing purpose-built subjects for the various job categories, employment categories in. So networking, you see a lot of networking specific, and you'll see that in the other ones as well. In this one, you've got 6 core subjects, so those you must do or get credit for. Just looking down through them, you've got internet working, as you'd imagine. ITC 571 is unusual. It's got an asterisk next to it because it is a capstone subject, and that means you do it either at the very end or near the end of your studies. It's a mini research subject. The idea here is to give you some research skills, and if you want to go on and do your doctorate, for instance, you'll be set up. And I should have turned my phone off. Sorry about that. You'd be set up to do that going forward. Just looking down, I'll just pick out another one there to have a look at, ITE 523, Virtualization. Now that's an industry certification. Remember I mentioned those before. It, not surprisingly, is built around the VMware VCP certification, easily the #1 certification in terms of virtualization. So we're a VMware Academy, we're a Microsoft Academy, we're all sorts of different academies, and that allows us to present the official curriculum. And it also means that, unlike most certifications, this one you actually have to do an authorized course before you're allowed to attempt the certification. We meet that criteria. Okay, that's the Master of Networking. As I said, our first one and a very, very popular Masters. This is our latest one that we just introduced this year, Master of Cloud. A bit different than the other one. We've got 7 core, but again, have a look. There's a lot of cloud-specific stuff in there to allow us to really call it a Master of Cloud Computing. And what's a bit different with this one, it's a purely technical focus. I'll just go back to Master of Networking, and you've got things like MGI 521, Professional Communications. Now, that's not TCP/IP or something. That's actually, it's a subject built around helping you to communicate effectively. It's a fantastic subject. I mean, a lot of people are shy away from it, but I've had so many graduates tell me it's the most valuable thing they did. It really, what's leading edge in terms of communication, and you get to practice it on the way through. So we all need to communicate. But if you look at the Master of Cloud, these are all technical subjects. So we don't have things like ethics and professional communications in there. So may or may not be your kettle of fish, but yeah, it's all the way through. So you've got your 7 core, and then you get to pick from 2 pools of elective. One of the elective pool is what we call the industry subjects. So again, these are, just having a look, they're all built around industry certifications. IT 513, for instance, forensic investigation, that's built around the Certified Forensic Investigator from the EC Council certification. And the big one in security is IT 514, Professional System Security, CISSP certification. So again, if you've got those certifications, you are entitled to credit for those. We're not, as I said, all you've got to do is send your details in, and we'll pre-approve you for credit. That's you can claim credit at any time all the way through your master. So if you're thinking of studying it, and we have a number of people doing this, they on one hand they're enrolled in their masters, probably doing one subject at a time, and on the other side they're doing some preparation for industry certification. Absolutely a good way to go, actually, in terms of preparing. So as I mentioned, Neil, you're still there? You haven't nodded off, have you?
No, Martin, I'm still here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's good. Neil is our expert in all things credit, so I'll take you through later on how you apply for that. Just have a look at, as I said, have a look at a subject here. This is the CISSP subject, the one I mentioned about the security one. There's an example of learning objectives. What you'd notice there, which is, the value we can add above a certification. I think the industry certifications are fantastic, and this one in particular is a very rigorous certification. But you can only test so much in a multiple choice exam. So what we're able to do in the subject is firstly help you get ready for the certification. That's fine, but then take you quite a bit further in terms of, okay, well, you know the theory. Let's see how you go with the practice of it, and how you can analyze and discuss security requirements. How do we test it? First thing everyone does when they look at a subject normally is going, what's the exam look like? What's the assessment? In this one, and they all vary, this is pretty typical though, you have an online test fairly early in the semester, and that's very much like the CISSP multiple choice questions. Then you've got an essay, which I hope that means more to you than me, the denial of service attack. And then there's a final exam. Normally, in the past, they've always been paper-based exam, but would you believe we now have e-exams that you can sit at home, very much like Microsoft is doing these days. So, yeah, the Master of Information System Security. Let's have as I said, that is today our most popular. Our Master of Project Management is very popular as well, but this one, of all the technical ones, is really taken off, which is interesting. We introduced it in 2006 or 7, and demand was quite low, and we were talking about withdrawing it. Well, thank God we didn't, because it has really taken off. So you've got your core subjects again, and then you've got your 2 groups of electives, choose 3 and 3. Again, the industry certification stuff is a mixture of security, but there's also some networking subjects as well. As you'd be aware, I mean, it's pretty hard to do security if you don't understand the network. So, and even things like if you want to get into project management, there's a project management elective in there for people. But the core ones are the key ones, and a good basis for security career. Either you're in it, you want to move up in it, or you want to move into it. Again, though, I would stress if you want to move, typically people move from a networking, position into security. If you're going to do that, you want to use this, is you really need to pretty quickly get into a security position, because there's a lot of implied knowledge, in terms of analysing your company and the security requirements. So we have had people do it without being in the position, but it's a pretty difficult thing to do. So just the background to the CSU IT Masters partnership. Before 2002, when we initially launched, the industry certifications were generally quite separate. Universities didn't have much to do with them. The one exception was Cisco. There was the Cisco Academy has been pretty popular at TAFE and university level. Well, that changed because what we did was we actually brought the two together. We integrated, as you've seen, industry certifications within the master's degree. It's not an add-on. It's not an optional. It's actually an integral part. So what we've done is grabbed certifications and preparation for certifications and built them within the university qualification. And the concept is, as I mentioned at the beginning, why not both? A lot of discussion about what's the most valuable thing to have on your resume. Well, everyone knows the most valuable thing is experience, but after that, what are employers looking for? Are they looking for qualifications or industry certs? And my general experience is quite often the IT manager is looking for certifications, but the HR people, and especially the ones that shortlist, unfortunately, a lot of cases are looking for qualifications, and they will shortlist under that basis. So you might be the perfect person for the job, but you don't get the interview. And I've seen that, especially in larger organisations, that they'll you get your 100 applicants, as you always do for every job these days. They want a shortlist of 5. They'll immediately shortlist based on what qualifications you've got. And I'll show you the impact, the dollar impact of that type of thing a bit later on. As I mentioned, what we did was we launched in 2002, and we actually integrated the certifications within the Masters. What impact did that have? Well, it had a huge impact. When we first launched, Charles Sturt were 18th in terms of universities doing IT. And you can see these up on the government site because they've all got to report their numbers to the government. In 2006, we hit market leadership in terms of the largest provider of postgraduate IT education in Australia. And today we dominate the market. It's getting incredible. Just the gap is growing and growing. We're nearly 70% bigger than the next provider. So look, the industry is voted with their feet. They want this stuff. I'm amazed that more universities aren't doing it. But the industry certifications are important to people and, as I say, to employers. What does IT Masters do? Well, we market Masters. That's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to convince some of you to come and study with us. We also do what I really love doing is research and identify opportunities for expansion. And the cloud is a good example of that. Wander around the industry, talking to people, seeing what's hot, what's coming up, what's the career opportunities going forward, and then you build the long process of put together your industry advisory board and start to build the next Masters. And we also support students studying their industry certification subjects. All right, so again, if we go back to, say, that VMware subject, it's delivered by the university using all the university systems, but we find the lecturers and we manage the lecturers. And they're an industry-based person who can say, well, today when I was working with VMware, this is what I found, and then help you study at the same time. The guy that runs this is also the president of the IT Professionals Association, which I strongly suggest you have a look at joining, ITPA. We're a strong supporter of them. He's also alumni, as so many of our lecturers are now. He completed the Master in Networking and System Administration, fantastic marks. He loves sharing his knowledge. I have no idea how he finds the time to do it, but he presents the VMware, and it's pretty typical of our industry-based lecturers. That's not to say the academic subjects are fantastic. They've got they bring a whole new. I always say they'll stretch your mind in all sorts of ways with the academic lecturers as well. That Charles Sturt's got a wonderful group of them. Why would you study at Charles Sturt? Do my little marketing blurb here. Well, I'm going to make some assumptions that you decided you want a master's degree on your resume, and one of the best financial investments you'd ever make, and again, I'll demonstrate that. You want to study via distance. IT people tend to travel a lot, pretty difficult to get to classes. And you would like to study the current technologies, frameworks, and platforms. And look, this is my experience that universities a lot of struggle with this. You know how quickly the industry is changing. It is pretty difficult to keep up to date if you're not working with it on a day-to-day basis. And that's, again, why we've designed this the way we have. You get industry-based people to teach it who are working with the technologies, and you align it with the latest certification, which forces you to keep up to date with what you're presenting. And why would you do distance ed? Well, Charles Sturt is the largest provider of distance ed, so we're pretty good at it. We've been doing it for nearly 50 years. And why would you do IT? Well, as I mentioned, we're the largest provider by a mile. These are actually a year out of date. The numbers have stretched a lot more now of IT postgraduate. Why are we the largest? Because of the product, in my opinion. There's nothing like it out there, and this merging of industry certification has been extremely popular and successful. So let's have a talk about study load. How much work's it going to be? Well, it absolutely, as you can imagine, depends on your experience level. If you come into the VMware subject with a big VMware background, you're not going to have to put anywhere near the amount of work as someone who's new to it. But if you were new to it, you would need to think about 6 to 12 hours per subject per week. So 2 subjects, I think that's a bit high. That's the university's guideline on it. But typically, if there were both subjects that you were pretty new to, you probably need 12, 15 hours a week in total. A couple of nights and an occasional day on weekends is the way a lot of people do it. But what people tend to do there is you pick a subject that you're pretty familiar with, and then one that's a bit new to you, or do one at a time if you're struggling there. But definitely okay to drop back to one subject or take leave. Again, you don't have to put a great justification. Just say, look, I need to take a break. Almost everyone does that, and that's fine. Just take the semester off and get your house in order and come back again. What's it cost? $31.50 per subject. So there's up to 12 subjects depending on the level of credit you get. It's due at the beginning of each study session. Should be tax deductible, providing it is in line with your career. GST exempt. It includes everything. You don't. Some unis make you buy textbooks and whatnot. Well, no, everything's provided. And you have, as with all universities, you get out stakes, I call it. A census in every session. You've got up to 4 weeks into it to withdraw. In other words, you're finding it's all getting away from you. Well, as long as you do it within the 4 weeks, you just pull out of the subject. You're not charged for it, and you can come back and do it later on. Or if it's an elective, you might decide that subject's not for you and pick another elective later on. So that's fine. People doing that. We don't want everyone doing it, but it does happen pretty regularly. If you're Australian citizen, everyone uses fee help. Why wouldn't you? It's a government study loan. It's interest-free. It covers all of your costs in this. So the way it works is when you do your application, they say, how do you want to pay for it? And you go tick fee help, and the government pays the uni. Just a word of warning here, we've had some people come back and say their accountant has told them that it would be, there's a loan fee. Yes, there is in undergraduate study. HECS help is 25%, which is pretty harsh. I think 25% loan fee, but it does not apply to these. A full fee postgraduate, I can assure you. It does not apply in this case. And unfortunately, you've got to pay it back, providing you've got a job and you're earning enough, you start to pay it back out of your wages. But as I say, just about everyone uses it. How do you get in, or what do you need to get in? Well, the normal one to require to get into a master's degree is a bachelor's degree. But would you believe almost half, just over half of our students don't have a bachelor's degree. They a lot of them started their IT bachelor degree at uni and did a year or two, and for whatever reason raced off and got a job in the industry and never completed it. So if you've got 3 years of industry experience, you can come into the Masters. You do it via what's called a graduate certificate pathway. That means is you do 4 subjects, you get a graduate certificate, and then it's you get credit for those subjects and continue on in your Masters. So a graduate certificate, for instance, if you're doing the Master of Networking and System Administration, there's a graduate certificate in System Administration, Networking and System Administration. So you do that, do your 4 subjects, and then say, yes, I would like to continue and do the rest of my Masters. The good news is it articulates with full credit, so you're not losing anything. In fact, you're gaining something. You're actually gaining another qualification. And of course, being a graduate certificate and only 4 subjects, you could be finishing, or you graduate with that in only 8 months, but we'd love to see you go on and do your full Masters, of course. So again, we definitely, we had some issues when we first launched that we got a lot of applicants, very experienced people who didn't have bachelor's degree, and a lot of them were rejected, which I thought was a real shame, but we've managed to fix that as we've gone on, and we now have a definite pathway for people without a bachelor. So don't worry about that. And every year we have prizes for the top performing students, and surprise, surprise, guess who generally wins them? It's the people without the bachelor's degree. I think they've got something to prove, or they're loving the academic world or whatever, but they generally seem to win the prizes. So don't worry if you don't, as I say, if you don't have one. Credit, this is Neil's area of expertise. There's 3 ways of getting credit. We definitely don't want you studying stuff that you already know. I mean, it'd be disruptive in the classroom, and it's not fair to you anyway. So if you've got industry certifications and they're less than 10 years old, we recognise most of the mainstream. Neil, you're there, still there?
Yes, Martin, I'm madly answering questions on the Q&A, which is going well.
Good. Have you ever counted up how many certifications here's a Q&A for you. How many certifications we give credit for?
Oh, there's so many. And there's so many that come up every week that I've never seen before, but so often they're credits. Yes. So it's a minefield, millions of them.
Yes, it's certainly a booming industry, the whole certification stuff. Anyway, you can also get credit for academic studies, but it needs to be postgraduate level. So you might have started a master's with someone else or done a master's with someone, you want to do a second one. As long as there's a good match between what was in a subject and one of the subjects. Again, we won't put you through the ringer with that. They would definitely award credit. We get a number of people getting credit for that. And a new way, which has just been approved, is you can do some of the IT Masters short courses. What are they? Well, if you go up on the IT Masters, we offer these free 4 or 5 week courses, normally part of a subject, just to give you a taster what it's like to study with Charles Sturt. And if you do through 3 of them and pass them, you're up for credit. But again, I talk to a lot of people in the industry and saying, yeah, I'm just trying to get my credit organised before I do my Masters. Well, you should start, quite frankly. You can get the credit at any time, right up to graduation. And the advantage of that is you get it on your resume. I went for a job in Telstra many years ago and had MBA in progress, and it worked beautifully. I mean, we'd have discussions at the interview about what I was studying and how I was studying, and yeah, so you get top of the benefit, even though I was only halfway through it at the time. So I do suggest you start, and even if it's just one subject, you'll get it on your resume straight away and get your credit as you go through. Maximum credit available is 50%, as I mentioned, so 6 out of 12. And if you want to find out about credit, even if you just want to start engaging with us, go up on the website, IT Masters, and fill out Neil's Am I Eligible form. Take you 5 minutes, and then Neil will come back and say, yep, that's credit, that's not. Even if you're considering doing some certifications and want to find out, just go and fill that out. And Neil gets over 1,000 of them a year, so he knows how to process them pretty quickly. When can you start? We've got 3 intakes a year. We've got 3 sessions. So the one that's coming up is the end of June. I think the 10th of July is that. So end of June, end of this month, you've got about a week coming up. I mentioned about the impact of a degree on your resume and on your earnings, and this is the data from the Australian Census. I couldn't think of a more rigid source, because you're required to put in how much you earn and whether you've got a degree in it, and because it's potentially cross-checked against your taxation, people tend to put the truth in. And look at the difference with people in IT who with degrees and no degree. And over a 25-year career, there's about a $600,000 difference, which would make it amongst the best investments you'd ever have. So definitely worth a look at, particularly if you don't have any degree. As you see, there's a difference. There's an improvement from bachelor as well, but it's nothing like with no degree. I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to try to find out the causal direction. Are they earning more because they're more motivated and that's why they did their degree, or is it because they're on their resume? Is it because of what they learnt? And I think it's a combination of all 3 of those. So, as I say, a great investment. Okay, I'll just wind up there. Outcomes. Well, you're going to end up with a master's level university, a master's degree. It's fully accredited. If you haven't already got them, you're going to prep for a range of industry certifications. And we can definitely say that because that's the subjects are built to help you prepare for those certifications. Up to you whether you go ahead and actually get them or not. And plus, I attempted a bit of a joke. Most importantly, actually, you get 25% discount at the university winery, and they're famous for their study of wine science. So alumni and current students get discount on the wines. You could have a bottle each subject as you pass it, on the way through. Okay, well, that's you've been asking questions. I can hear Neil typing away in the background, so obviously people are answering on the Q&A. But if you're interested in that next intake particularly, you need to get your skates on. We don't need all the documentation. We can get that from you later on, but we do need you to fill out an application form, CSU online form. And again, you've got you've got up till census to pull out of the subject. So it's not as if you don't have options if it gets too busy or whatever. But again, all I suggest to you, as you're thinking about it, make a start. Just do a subject at a time. You've got it on your resume then. The benefits start to flow. And I think you'll find, as so many of them do, they get into it and they start to love it. We've had, would you believe, 19% of our current students have already done a qualification with us and are coming back and doing another one. They might have done a graduate certificate in another area and come across, or we had got one guy do 4 masters, would you believe, and before he went on to do his doctorate, he called himself an academic junkie by the end of it. And so it's amazing, as I say, how many come into it and start to really enjoy it. So anyway, thanks for listening. Good luck with your career. Hope to see you as a student, but if not, good luck in the future. Neil, I'll leave that open so you can answer some questions, or you're finished. How's it going there?
No, I've done all the current ones. I'll just stay on and close the seminar after you, Martin. If anyone's got any questions, please ask them now or give me an email. Thank you.
So other people can see the Q&A, can they? They can see the questions being and your answers?
Yes, I've been answering to, except for a couple of specific ones, I've been answering to all people to see them.
Okay, all right. So just have a look. If you might, before you ask your question, you might have a scroll down and see if Neil's already answering it. All right, thanks again.